Proposify is the tool that's awesome. Our rev team loves it. But Kyle's grown, like one of the things we talked about and the thing you're talking about today is building a SaaS sales team from scratch. And so I'm super pumped because you guys started as a web design agency and you grew to something that's I don't want to say the revenue number, but pretty damn impressive. The product is pretty cool. I know we've got a call to action at the end, so everybody can check out the link or check out a demo if you want. I recommend it purely because I like Kyle, but our sales team recommends it because it's better than the tool we were using before and we don't have any more issues. With that being said, Kyle, I'm going to pass it off to you, let you sort of take the reins here.
All right. Thanks a lot, Colin. Appreciate that.
And it looks like there's some Proposify love in the chat here as well.
I saw that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm able to share my screen, I take it?
Yeah, you betcha. Perfect.
Okay. I'll kick into it now. So thanks again for the intro, Colin, and thanks everybody for joining. So I guess the thing that I wanted to share with everybody today was the whole concept of starting from zero. That's sometimes the hardest thing to do. It's, once the engine's going a little bit, it's kind of easy to keep it humming, but how do you go from zero sales team to a sales team that's actually productive and generating revenue? And that was a challenge that we had faced a few years ago, because when we started Proposify, we were really a self-serve SaaS tool. We sold very small priced plans. We sold to small businesses and freelancers, and we were attempting the upmarket move where you start selling bigger deals that require a sales team. So, we fumbled a lot along the way, and I want to share some of those lessons with people. So hopefully you can avoid some of our mistakes, and then some of the cool stuff that we tried that it did work out, you can learn from that and apply that as well. So usually if you're starting a sales team from the ground up, it's usually a couple of common scenarios. So like us, you've got maybe a self-serve product and you want to start selling those bigger deals. You've got that third tier on your pricing page that says enterprise call for pricing. And that's where you need to start with a sales team. Another one is sometimes people start a new software startup and they're already selling to bigger companies, but it's the founder who leads all the sales. Every single prospect who comes to the door talks to the CEO or the founder. And now you're kind of at a point where you've got to start scaling yourself. You don't have time as the founder to take every lead that comes in the door. You don't want to turn away leads, so you need to now train somebody else to do it. And the other scenario is you've just raised investment and you've got fuel, you've got cash in the bank that you've got to spend now to hit some impressive growth numbers to please your investors. So those are the common scenarios. The common mistakes that I've seen, that often I've experienced myself, is you go, okay, well, we're just going to hire a salesperson, kind of throw them into the mix and let them figure things out and go from there. I'll explain more about why these can be mistakes. Another one is you've got cash in the bank from your investment. And so now you're going to hire you can afford 10 sales reps. So let's hire 10 and let them all go in the mix and figure it out together. The other one is, okay, again, we've got cash, we can afford it. Let's go and hire the biggest, the best VP of sales that money can buy from, insert huge giant SaaS company here. And they're the ones that, it's a virtually guaranteed they're going to lead us to victory and scale this huge organization. And then the other common things is, and maybe this is if you're not funded, but you go, well, we have a support team and, they already field kind of questions from new prospective customers or trial signups. So let's get them just jumping on the phone with people to kind of talk about this enterprise tier. And those are all very, very common mistakes that people make. I've made some of these myself. And so now I'm going to talk about kind of what is the best approach when you're starting from zero. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about, I guess, first, who's going to lead the sales team, because this is, one of the most important hires that you're going to make. Now, if you to date have been the founder who's doing all the sales, let's say you already sell kind of to enterprises, you sell fairly high price plans, then you are the one who've rolled up your sleeves and, dug in and talked to every prospect on the phone. You probably could make a good first leader for your sales team until eventually you can bring in a VP or a director or somebody who really specializes in leading sales teams. But I guess the key thing to keep in mind is that it's often very difficult to translate your sales ability as a founder to a sales rep. They don't have your clout, or they don't have CEO in their title or founder in their title. And so instantly you have a leg up. You've also, this is your baby. You've built this product from scratch. You've owned this problem for probably years in your head. So the ability to talk about it comes very naturally. That doesn't always translate well when you hire a sales rep. You need a really good system to onboard them and train them and get them understanding the value and being able to speak to it. So in the beginning, the leader, even if whether it's you as the founder or whether you hire somebody to lead the team, they're still going to be wearing a lot of hats. They're going to be hiring reps, training reps, looking at the sales funnel, the sales process. They're going to have to think about sales commissions, how to optimize sales scripts or decks, tons of coaching. So, be prepared to hire somebody who is a real doer, a builder. They're not somebody who, is just expecting to come in and kind of wear the hat of a boss. They're ready to roll up their sleeves and do some work. I really recommend avoiding hiring, a VP sales with a capital V. I talked about the person from big company X who's maybe come off of an acquisition and has worked with companies that are in the tens of millions or more in revenue, because often that doesn't necessarily translate well to a startup. I think it's actually in predictable revenue where they talk about Mr. Dashboards as being one of those VPs of sales.
Yep, you bet, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that analogy, because really the kind of leader who's going to lead a bigger team when you're in hundreds of reps or, you're a massive organization, that's a completely different skill set than somebody's going to have to build it from scratch. And we were really lucky to, after a couple mishires, to really get Daniel Haybear, who's our director of sales, to come in and really, he was somebody who had worked on marketing teams. He worked at early stage startups. He had kind of gotten that first, million or so in revenue, and, understood demand gen, sales enablement, all these different things. So he was really able to come in and kind of clean up a bit of our mess and implement some things that really started to have a meaningful impact. And that's not something that everybody has, especially if they're a more polished, seasoned executive, right? They're used to this stuff being all there ready for them. So let's talk about the AEs, who are the first sales reps that you hire? Generally in speaking, you're going to want your first sales reps. And I say reps because you probably want 2, if not 3, no more than that, but you certainly don't want 1. Because really it's remarkable, 2 sales reps with the exact same training, the same materials, the same product can have vastly different outcomes in terms of, are they able to hit revenue numbers? So hiring 2 or 3 gives you a sense of, if none of them can sell, we either grossly mishired, or maybe our product isn't ready for the enterprise, or maybe our pricing is wrong, or maybe our messaging and our positioning is off. There could be a whole pile of other things at the company level that you're missing. But getting 2 or 3 AEs will give you sort of a sense of, is it possible? Because if 1 or 2 of them can hit numbers, then you can start really thinking about scaling it, but not before that. So generally, you're going to want your AEs to be very hungry, very curious, very coachable, really good at assessing their own performance and not feeling, sometimes you get a sales rep who's been successful in another sales role, and they come in with those bad habits, or they come in with a bit of an ego thinking, I crushed my numbers. I was the number 1 sales rep at company X. And so now they can't be coached. You can't now develop a sales process with them because they've come in with their own sales process. And that's really what you want to avoid. You also want to get your sales reps, I call them full stack, because I guess I'm more of a development background than sales. But really, you want your sales rep to not sit there idly and wait for marketing to hand them leads, or wait for an outbound BDR to hand them leads. They should be, hungry and ready and willing to pick up the phone and start, prospecting, and not be afraid of that. We've had really good sales reps in the past who've come and gone who were good in all fronts, but terrified of the phone, did not want to pick it up. And that's a red flag with a sales rep, especially at an early stage startup or a startup that's trying to build a sales engine. Also, this is maybe my own experience, but in the past, I haven't been that successful with sales reps who have SaaS backgrounds. You would think that a sales rep who came from SaaS and now is at your SaaS company is going to already kind of understand how to do it. But more often than not, we've had more success with people, with sales reps who have had more diverse experience. Maybe they've done canvassing, or one of our sales reps used to run and operate a retail outlet. So don't just feel like you have to hire somebody with SaaS experience. Often the ones who have been high achievers in other types of jobs can be really effective. And again, no bad habits, and you can really mold them and coach them into what you want. Specializing roles. So this is something that I think is pretty industry standard now in SaaS, is that you want your inbound SDR who does this part of the sales funnel, and then you want your AE. There's a handoff, and all these kind of specialized roles in sales. And that works, but again, only once you have a repeatable engine. And we'll talk more about those specialties in a few minutes. But really, again, you want your AEs comfortable making those dials, learning the talk tracks, jumping on discovery calls, doing some prospecting. You don't want an order taker. And if you have somebody who has done the really the hardest role, I think, which is the outbound prospecting, that's going to equip them later on, if they develop and become managers now, to actually be able to coach other outbound BDRs. So everybody on the sales team, especially in the early days, have to be productive. There's no sense having an AE sit around idly and twiddle their thumbs while they're waiting on, marketing or some BDRs to generate leads for them. You really need everybody being really productive. The next point is this idea of focusing on learning over numbers. So I think especially founders can do this, where you're just so anxious to get to the point where you're like, predictable quotas, every rep's hitting quotas. And so you start to implement these processes that really look more like big companies, where it's like, if you don't hit your quota, you get punished a little bit. You get like a decelerator. And then when you hit above your quota, you get an accelerator. But I think what we had found in the past was there was a lot of fundamental issues that we hadn't yet solved as a company, that it's not really fair to put on reps, right? If you're trying to sell a product to enterprise, but you're up against more established competitors with more robust feature sets and more integrations, and they're losing deals because your product just can't compete with what's out there, that's on really your product and engineering team to solve, right? So, sales reps seem to be the only ones who get punished for not, hitting their numbers. And that might work at a bigger company when really everybody should be able to hit quotas. But in the early days, it's like, use your sales reps as a learning tool and don't punish them. In fact, what we'd started doing was even just giving them their commissions for a set period of months, while we knew that there was a lot of behind the scenes work that we needed to do to help them, build pipeline and be able to hit numbers. Now, of course, if an AE is, if they're not applying the coaching you're giving them, or they have, bad lack of work ethic, that's something you want to let them go really quickly. But if they're working hard, if they're hitting their activity numbers and they're just not seeing results because of problems that are outside of their control, then, go easy on them. So this is one of the things like a really effective leader does in the earliest stages of sort of jumping into a sales team and figuring out, okay, how do we make this work? Is, you don't try to optimize the entire sales funnel all at once. You really attack each stage and hone it and get it right before you move on. So this is something that Dan Hebert had done when he came in first, was just looked at the discovery decks and looked at the discovery calls, listened to them, and tried to get them to the point where discovery was working. They were moving to the next stage, or bad fit customers were getting pushed out and disqualified. Eventually you can move on. If the founder has been doing the sales to date, one thing that you can do is use the founder vision in your calls. This is something else that Dan had done. And I've actually been on sales calls where sales reps have done this. Is that quite effective, is talk about, hey, so-and-so is our founder. This is the problem she wanted to solve. This is what, she saw in the market and she wanted a better way to, et cetera, et cetera. And kind of using almost that script that your CEO is using in the early days and actually arming your reps with it can be effective as well. Having a methodology, super important. So there's tons of methodologies out there. There's Sandler, there's solution selling, there's the challenger approach, there's spin selling. We use the Sandler methodology ourselves, but just having a methodology is better than not having one. Of course, you have to actually use it. So one of our mistakes that we had made in the past was we had spent a lot of money on Sandler. We'd gotten the training every month, but we weren't really using it. If you went and listened to the reps' calls, they weren't actually applying that. So something that Dan had done was when he came in installing, we used Chorus. I think, we still use Chorus. Gong is also an alternative, but really start to listen to those calls. This is something I didn't do as a founder when hiring our first reps, was I didn't listen to their calls. So I would have no idea what they're saying or not saying. I would only see the output or the outcome. Did they close the deal? But listening to calls is one of the most important coaching tools and really essential. You have to do it. The other thing is using the methodology and building it into the actual decks. This was something we weren't really doing until Dan came in. Was, okay, you've got your Sandler methodology, your pain funnel. Let's actually make sure that our qualification decks, our disco decks, our demo decks use this methodology and kind of in a sense force the reps to all use the funnel in the most appropriate way. And the last piece was that he built it into Salesforce itself. So this is a real Sandler scorecard from within our Salesforce. But this actually has the custom fields built out with the Sandler methodology and the pain funnel. So that reps are kind of forced in a sense to fill this out. So having a methodology is one thing, using it is another thing. And this is a practical way of how you can use it. Lots of discussion is around comp plans. So, the thing is, comp plans are going to change all the time. You're never going to get it right on the first try. So the best thing to do is just pick something simple, go with it, and tweak it from there. I'm a big fan of, especially in the early days of sales, is just a flat goal that they have to hit, or that we want them to hit. Of course, if they don't hit it, you're not going to hit a home run every single month. But if you can hit this number 2, 3, 4 months in a row, okay, we've got some predictability in our forecasts. And then if they exceed it, you've got an accelerator. So maybe, every dollar above their quota, they get, instead of 10%, it's 20%. And again, maybe using draws until there's some predictability. If you're still figuring out positioning and product, letting them kind of have some guaranteed income during those months where it's just not really predictable. And when you get to the points where the AEs are hitting quota, you've got 2 or 3 that are like 3, 4 months in a row. Calendars are booked full of meetings and they don't even have time to prospect or qualify. That's when you want to start moving to phase 2. So I'll talk about phase 2, which is a little bit briefer. How are we doing for time? I know we had 20 minutes and there was time for Q&A. Am I over?
We're at 8:45 Pacific. We've got until 9 until the next speaker is going, and we wanted to leave some room for questions.
Okay.
So we can either, you want to take another 10 minutes and then we can leave 5 for questions?
Yeah, I think I could probably blow through this next part a little faster, so we can leave more time for questions if people want that.
And just before you jump in, some people were asking, hey, is Kyle sharing his slides? Julie has thrown them in the Slack channel. I've posted a link in the chat, so you can join the Slack channel and then jump into the live chat room. That's where you can get a full copy of these slides. All awesome. Right, back to you, Kyle.
Yeah. So, phase 2, again, we're not going to dig into this in detail because these are all pretty big topics that we could spend a lot of time talking about, but it's kind of like, okay, you've got a good sales leader, 2 or 3 AEs who are hitting quota consistently. How do you start to scale it from there? And this is kind of an order of operation, I think. One is you really need an inbound BDR, maybe 2, but at least 1, because now you want somebody who's a little bit more fresh and junior to come in, and train them on how to take those trials, those demo requests, get them on the phone, qualify them, and then set them up for a demo or disqualify them so that the AEs can spend most of their time demoing and having, really financial discussions about how to move the deal to the next step. So that's kind of inbound BDR. Outbound SDR is one that it's not for everyone. You certainly don't want to build a big team too quickly because outbound is just hard to get right. When you get it right, it's amazing. It's super scalable, but it is difficult and it can take a long, long time to figure out. But that's something that you may want to experiment with is just, get somebody who's out there prospecting, maybe targeting accounts. What we have at Proposify is an outbound SDR, Brandon, who's amazing, who he'll go through content leads. So people who've maybe downloaded lead magnets. So they're kind of familiar with Proposify, but you wouldn't say they're, wallet out ready to buy, and he'll just start conversations with them. That can be a nice way to sort of have a little bit of a warm intro to somebody, but not go in completely cold with just, hey, check out our product. The other one is sales operations. Sometimes some companies wait a really long time to build sales ops into their team. It's something we did pretty early, and we had actually our inbound SDR call and transitioned into a sales ops manager. But it's like if your sales leader is tied down to generating reports and dealing with lead routing and cleaning up data records and automating parts of the process, it's just not a great use of their time. And you could get somebody who's much better at that to come in and own the CRM and really try to make the sales reps more efficient and effective. Last piece too, again, doesn't always get built until way later. Dan Hebert, our sales, director is an actual sales enablement manager by trade. That's what he was before he came with us, and actually started with us as an enablement manager. So he believes in it, and it's something where if you can build that in the earlier days and have somebody to create curriculum and training programs, that again is going to take some pressure off the sales leader, and they're going to be much more effective at, making the reps more successful in their jobs. So just quick recaps, some key takeaways is, hire the right sales leader for where you're at. Don't necessarily hire, the big VP of sales. If you're too early for that, it's not a great use of Mr. or Mrs. dashboards. Emphasizing playbooks, coaching reps, really trying to learn and make every rep efficient. I shouldn't say efficient, effective, because it's really not about efficiency. It's about, do we have product market fit for what we're trying to do? Is the enterprise plan working? Can we predictably move prospects through a deal cycle and have some predictability about it? And, learning as you go. Another key takeaway is just have a methodology and actually use it, and use some of those techniques about really baking it into your sales process. And don't wait until you're too big to hire ops and enablement, because if you have ops and enablement, even in the earlier days when it's a 10 person team, that's going to help you speed up while you grow. So kind of went through that part a little bit quicker. Now, one of the things I did want to offer people if they wanted to check it out is we've actually gone through over 1 million documents in our product, Proposify, and actually pulled out some interesting insights in the SaaS market specifically. So it's called our SaaS data proposals. You can get it at proposify.com/state of SaaS proposals. And there's some pretty cool insights you can check out. As Colin also mentioned, people can definitely sign up for a trial or a demo if they want to check out the product Proposify and see if it can help them speed up their proposal process. So that's all for me. I'll hand it back over to Colin.
All right. Thanks, Kyle. Definitely agree with the outbound is hard. I like the way you structure it. I love the way that you have your qualification matrix in Salesforce. Super cool. We do the same thing. The person who's coming up later today, I think around 10:30 Pacific, Jamie Buss, she showed me her MEDIC qualification matrix, and we did the exact same thing, and we built it in. The only difference was we used a stoplight instead of a smiley face. So that's my one regret with implementing it in Salesforce.
Gotta have the smiley face.
Yeah. I think and Sarah can build on this. Sarah, I know you're hanging out here, and Kyle, if you could kill your screen share in there?
Yeah.
Sure. So we can see Sarah and friends again. Let's see if I can get the views all right here. But Sarah's actually has done something similar. We've done, mid-bounds is what you called it, I think.
Yeah, that's what we call them. And that's kind of it was from Beck Holland's idea of a post-bound. That's what she calls it. I guess everyone has their own kind of, but it's not a true cold. Outbound, as you said, they're not completely cold, but they're not wallet out ready to buy. It's like right in the middle.
Mm-hmm. And we've got Beck Holland coming on as well. There's so many awesome people that I'm excited to actually hang out. So Beck Holland is at 12:30 Pacific time today. And she's probably going to cover a little bit of that. I'm excited. All right, so now we're going to go to the Q&A here. We've got a Q&A tab going, and we've got the live chat in Slack. I'm just going to see if so now's your chance. I'm watching the live chat room in Slack. I'm also watching the Q&A, and you might be able to hear my little monster children on the other side of the door. I'm not sure how sensitive my mic is, but if you hear them, you hear them.
A little bit. It's not
cool.
Too bad.
Kyle, when you are hiring a BDR, what key points would you consider stand out? Oh, things keep moving around. Stand out from the rest.
So this is an inbound BDR, I assume they mean, or outbound?
Rodrigo, I'm not sure which one. Well, let's do one for inbound and one for outbound. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. So right now, Gabby is our inbound BDR, and she's amazing. I think one of the biggest traits I think of Gabby that is something you want to look at is just pure work ethic, because it is a tough job to be on the phone a lot. She crushes like 100 dials a day, and just doesn't let up. And in fact, Dan's often like kind of pushing Gabby to like slow down a little bit, take breaks. And I know she's been posting about that on LinkedIn, but just a workhorse. And if you can find somebody like that who's just ready to like roll up their sleeves and work their ass off, that's an amazing trait because it is a job that requires that.
Perfect. All right. And we've got, let's see, Owen was asking, what size sales team do you think is best for a new startup?
I mean, if it's a brand new startup without product market fit and essentially not, I mean, I would say probably don't hire a sales team at that point. But if you've got some product market fit or the founder's been able to, make some customers successful and close deals and onboard them and everything else. I mean, I think like I kind of posted earlier in the slides, like a 2-person AE team, maybe with a leader, or maybe the leader comes a bit later is probably a good number to start with.
Yeah, I'll plus one on this one. It totally depends on the skills of the sales team. Like we were able to, with predictable revenue, we got away with quite a bit because my background was in sales, and so I was our only AE until about $1 million in ARR. I would not recommend that to most founders. I probably hung on to it for way too long. But it was one of those things where like, this is what I know. I don't know how to be a CEO. And so I'm good at being a salesperson. And so I definitely hung on to that for too long. But I think it totally depends on, it's sort of like how long is a piece of string? I think you're totally right, Kyle. It's like, if you have product market fit and you're the founder and you're selling something, then absolutely, you can start to scale a little bit faster and hire a couple more people. If you're still figuring things out and you need somebody that can help you figure that out, you probably want one of those like AE hustlers that can do both prospecting and closing and provide that feedback loop, because they're almost acting as an extension to your product team at this stage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Bringing those insights, like why are we losing deals, or we didn't have feature X. That's a huge. I think it's an under leveraged tool for the product team.
Totally. We got one from Slack. Patrick's asking, how do you continue to motivate sales reps if they're in a slump?
Great question. And we've definitely been in slumps. In particular, last year it was a rough summer where we were figuring a lot of things out. I mean, I think what we did in particular, Dan did with the team, and I was involved at various points, was really just getting really close with them. Like they had a book club. They would talk about, we had like an offsite to sort of build that camaraderie of like, hey, we know it's rough. This is what we're doing. We're figuring it out. And then the financial piece of like cover their quota. If the whole team is in a slump, there's more going on. If one person's in a slump, then, it's shitty for that person. And there's other ways to kind of try to motivate them and get their mojo back, because everybody gets in slumps. Every sales rep, even their best one, will have a bad 2 months or 3 months at a time. But if the whole team's that's really when you have to come together as a team.
Beautiful. One last one that I'm going to answer quickly, and then I think we actually need to get rolling, and because these are all in the same Zoom account. So we've got one last one from Anonymous asking, have you worked with commission-only sales agents? What's your opinion going that direction? Personally, as somebody who grew up in sales, I hate that model because I think it's sort of it's very old school, and I think it's almost disrespectful to the sales talent and saying like you're not valuable unless you're closing, and I think it puts too much of the onus on the account exec, too much risk on the account exec, and not enough on the company for training and onboarding and all that.
It's also bad for the company because that rep is going to have to bring in every deal that they can, and whether they're good deals or bad deals, they're going to close everything.
Yep. All right. That's the time we have. I love these questions. If you've got some in the, where's the Twitch stream link again? So we'll get, let me just copy and paste it here. I think you can go to growth.predictablerevenue.com and it's embedded there. It's also PredRev on Twitch. So you can check that out there. The questions here, if you didn't get a chance, if I didn't answer them, please throw them in the live chat, and we'll get Kyle in there as well so he can answer questions afterwards. If you've got questions about Proposify, or if you want that link, we'll also throw them in the live chat there. So thank you everybody for everything here. If you're hanging out on Twitch, you're just going to follow me because I'm going to click out of this Zoom. If you want to jump on Twitch, we're there. But big thanks to Kyle. I know he can't hear you, but we'll do the clap or the that our team from Latin America and South Africa says is basically like happy celebration time. So we do this now instead of clapping, because otherwise if I clap, then my mic is going to go crazy. And then the volume drops off. But Kyle, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Love it, man. And we'll throw a link to your LinkedIn in the live chat there. So if people want to just say hey or thanks, then they can do that there.
Awesome. Well, I'll see everyone on Slack.
Right on. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, everybody.